is Michelle Sneed, and I am a 12-year survivor for breast cancer, and I basically found out uh, right before my birthday. I was 29, turning 30, and I'd been seeing a variety of different morning shows talking about cancer this, cancer that, and saw a little segment of something saying women should have their mammograms and other personal kind of try to put it around like holidays or birthdays so they can remember every year to either have their yearly checkup and the exams. So I just thought about it. I had actually got a puppy and fell over my puppy and bruised a spot on my chest, and it didn't completely heal. And I was wondering, like, it's kind of still sore, it's still a lump. So let's figure it out. And went to go see a doctor and check up, just like, hey, I'm here. By the way, I fell over my puppy. I got a lump right on my breast, and just to make sure and rule out that it's not just the bruise from falling. And I do have a family history, so he did a check and tried to do a needle biopsy, and of course it came up to be not unconclusive. And then he sent me for a mammogram, and had scheduled it. And just luck of the draw, the day that I went to go see him, when I came home later on that day, I had a surprise birthday party. So, hey, it was kind of like, whoa, and I'm like, hey. So that following Monday, I went in and had a mammogram, and then it was my birthday, and my test results came back being unconclusive. So getting calls from doctor to doctor to doctor, and went in to see my doctor, and he's just like, all right, so let's set up an appointment, see a surgeon. And basically, that's where it all started in February, 2005. But before that, like I said, with family history, my birth mother was diagnosed at age 42 of breast cancer, and she had a supreme case. She'd been scared and didn't want to go into the hospital or to the doctor, and had been experiencing some pain and some swelling in the arm and the leg. And a family member was like, okay, and they put her in a car, took her to the hospital. Right then, as far as I understand, right then and there, they admitted her, and she had her left breast removed, lymph nodes that were in her neck and armpit and in the chest removed, and she had cancer in both breasts, but one was really bad off. So she survived 5 years. She did treatments and things like that, but she survived 5 years with ongoing cancer and passed 10 months prior to me being diagnosed. So having a 2-year-old or turning 2-year-old and a 4-year-old going on 5 and a brand new puppy, I also had to deal with chemotherapy, hardcore chemotherapy, and hardcore radiation. So that was my beginning of my journey. And then, of course, surviving that, I did. I actually had my oldest sister get diagnosed and with breast cancer almost a year and a half after I did, but she also lost her life a year and a half after I did, and she was only 34. So that was really hard, and found out some years later, an aunt got diagnosed with breast cancer, and shortly, probably a year or two later, she had lost her battle to breast cancer. And then just this July, my youngest baby sister at age 33 lost her life to breast cancer. So it's a big thing. It's been my world. It's been more than just my world. It's my everything. It's my breath. It's my I don't think it's my curse. It's more or less my blessing, and I use that to get out and talk to people. I know when I was experiencing it, I was just very talkative about it. Didn't hide it. Wasn't ashamed. Very vocal. and talked so much about it at the gym that I belonged to at the time that a lot of the guys working out in the gym came up and told me, wow, just listening to you talk, I went and said something to my wife, told my wife, you know, have you checked your breasts? Have you gone and had your mammogram? And it made them more attentive to their mother, their sister, their wives, girlfriends, and such, and children, their daughters, to keep them, to check them. And it was kind of interesting that I had a guy come up to me and tell me, yeah, I told my wife she needs to set an appointment and go. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, that was great. So, yeah, I've been learning and learning from it, all the different things that I've gone through, and just trying to give back, basically. That's really what I try to do. I've been a part of the American Cancer Society Making Strides movement for 10 years now. So I'm a 12-year survivor, but of course that first year I couldn't participate. And then there was a year that I had my surgery, and I couldn't participate during that time. But I have been consistently participating, yeah. I honestly keep looking for the light in every situation. So, of course, initially when you first get diagnosed, you're kind of like, wow, what? Are you sure? And then, you know, you kind of get that, why me? Like, wait a minute. Like, which I did. I can't lie and say I didn't say, whoa, I mean, I'm just turning 30. So I've got young babies. I don't understand. I didn't live in a hazardous, you know, I didn't work in a hazardous place. I did all the good things. I ate well. I was fit. I wasn't into drugs or this or that. And it just so happens that this is what you're given. So, and my thing was always to find the positive in it. So I do believe that I was starting to lose myself and lose who I was. And I knew I do like to talk, and I didn't have a gift. It wasn't like a gift. It was nothing I was doing with it but socializing here and there and starting, you know, raising kids and everything. So I took all of that and I basically asked the question, like, so what am I supposed to learn from this? That was really it. 1 second I thought, why me? And then I came to about a day or so later, what am I supposed to learn from this? I'm supposed to take something from this and do something with it. So what do I do? And the first thing was to separate myself from people that felt like they were giving you a positive story, but in turn their positive story had a dark side. And you're already worried about your outcome and what's going to happen. So I had to separate myself from them and pretty much block them. I also had to block myself from too much information, from internet research and everything else, and just pretty much zero in on myself and zero in on what I had to do. And the other part was I had 2 small children, and I just could not see them living without me in their life. Not in pictures, not in memory from someone else. So I basically had a talk with God and said, they need me. I'm their mother, and the only way that I can get them to where they need to be as young men is for me to be here. I can't have it any other way. And then I made it a little funny and was like, besides, I would be haunting whoever stepped in a mother role, so it's not going to work. So that was my mission, was to, if it wasn't for me, and I didn't do it for me, I'm going to be honest, I didn't do it for me. I didn't do it for my mom and dad. I didn't do it for my husband. I did it for my boys. They were my life. They gave me breath. I gave them life, but now they were giving me life. So making it through that, that was my turn. And then trying to learn from it. Okay, so now that I've gone through it and I'm here in the process, now what? So, you know, my sister's death and it was a bad year. That whole year was a bad year. But through that year of all the death that was surrounding, not just hers, I tried to stay positive, lit up the house in Christmas lights really early, and had a breakdown. Actually, after the end of the season, I had a breakdown. I'm going to admit that. I did. I had a breakdown. Can't help it. It was a lot. So I got information regarding her test results, and I said I couldn't let her death just end there. So I had to use that information to get myself further. So mind you, I'm only 2 years out at that time. So I decided, after looking at my test results and blood work and going back and forth to the doctor about my the genes, or actually basically my family history, I went ahead and chose to do the genetic testing for the BRCA1 or BRCA2 mutation. And of course, being that I was a young person of breast cancer and sister and birth mother and all of that, it came to that I do have a mutation in the BRCA1 gene. So with all of that, there was more information to continue to be here and steps that I needed to take to continue to be here. Fitness has always been like my biggest thing. So working out, eating well, taking certain things out of my diet, which was not a good thing. So I eliminated negative things. If I'm trying to live a healthier life and continue to be here, there was no sense in me polluting my body with negative things. So I started taking things out of my regular everyday diet. I went ahead and chose to have the bilateral mastectomy with the reconstructive surgery, with talking to my team of doctors, which they're great, wonderful, wonderful group. It was the best decision to do. And then after that, getting the information regarding the bilateral mastectomy and like starting that process, which was actually 10 years ago, all these anniversaries. So after all of that, I ended up getting other information from my OBGYN, and where I had been put into menopause with my chemotherapy. Well, it did not stay, which was odd. And so it's because of the estrogen driven with the cancer. And since it was so rampant in my family history, so strong, he made the decision, or he gave me the chance to make a decision on whether I wanted to continue to keep my reproductive organs. And at that time, I chose, in order for me to be here, that I would also let it go. Exactly. So it was just like a lot of different information over time and surgeries and things to go through, that I just kept saying, I just got to be here. These guys, they need me. And being where I am now, I'm like, okay, so after my younger sister lost her life and lost her battle, it's like, okay, where else can I go with this? I've always wanted to give back. I've always, besides just doing the walk and coordinating for people to come and join me in the walk and donating, I've always wanted to do more than that. So actually a few weeks ago, I have my own fitness center now. And a few weeks ago, I ordered for the breast cancer bus to come. And we, at the end of the day, Thursday, they told me there was no one signed up. But they would come out anyway, and it's in a different area. There's never been on this side of town before. So I organized and said, okay, are you going to come anyway? They said, yes. I was like, okay. And that Saturday morning, we had 8 ladies get tested. And that was like, yes. All right, because so much, there was one lady in particular, she's like, no, I'm scared. And I said, I'll hold your hand. I'll hold your hand, I'll take you. I've talked to all my siblings, all my sisters, and I've told them to check, go to get checked, and continue to get checked. And there's a lot of fear also to go get tested for the BRCA1. There's a lot of fear. And a lot of people that they feel that they just don't want to know. And then it gets to the point where it's too late for a lot of other decisions, and they wish they had started earlier. So I don't want that to happen to anyone. I watched my sister fight, my youngest sister fight against not having her regular life or what she's used to, and not fully going through with, not going as extreme, I guess you want to say, as I did. And I don't think I did extreme, but I listened, and I kind of had a feeling that it was going to be a little bit more than just go have chemo, go have radiation, have the lump removed. It was going to be more than that, and it did. But at the end, I'd rather be here than to have had no surgeries and not be here. I did not tell my boys what I was going through at the very beginning, because they were 4 and 2, and then of course 5, but he ended up turning 5. So they were really young, and I remember catching a cold, and my son freaked out and thought I was going to die. So at that point, I was like, I'm not going to really say anything to them because they're too sensitive to it. But in the past few years, I just recently started talking to them about it and letting them know what I've been through, and to see where I am now. And they see me, they've walked for me, which was great. You know, I get them to wear pink for me every once in a while, and they're like, huh. So, but I think they're going to be very well prepared, and I will be there supporting and full of, you know, just to be a part of the team. My biggest thing wasn't like over information during that time, but was to take my mind off of it. I didn't want to wallow in it. I didn't want to see anyone with a sad face. Everyone had to be upbeat. Let me hear about your trials. Let's talk about that. I don't want you to come in and be like, oh, you know, I didn't want that. So I feel that by being informed and having the genetic testing, my sons will be getting that genetic testing done once they hit 18. They're able to go and do that. So that way they will know if that's a gene that they will have to worry about passing on to their daughters. Hopefully not. I prayed, let it stop with me and not go any further than this. But at least they will have that information, and they'll be highly informed. And the people the person that they're with will be informed of that detail. They know by seeing me how much I pushed and how much I tried to survive, and I put my efforts and energy behind keeping their life normal and having their mother here, and not being afraid of actually what it is, and trying to figure out, okay, now that I know, what can I do to go further or to continue to be here? What can I do to get past this? And hopefully they can see the strength, and that they basically inherit that strength and not be afraid. And it's on everything, that they're not afraid of so what's the diagnosis? Because of the fear. It's the fear. It's the fear. And honestly, once you wipe out that fear, it's like, okay, now that you've told me. And it's kind of funny. When I had my surgery, I did not know yet if it was cancer. It was highly possible, inconclusive. So before going in, my doctor said, we'll know as soon as we cut. We'll know. But we also have to send it off. I said, okay. So I remember waking up in recovery, and it was interesting. My husband and my mother was next to me, and I'm like trying to force my eyes open. And actually before that, when I was coming out, the doctor was, you know, letting me know, hey, we're done. Everything is good. And I said, did you see it? And he said, yes. And he says, we'll talk more. I faded back out. When I woke up in recovery, my mother and my husband were there. And I said, so what was it? And he was like, well, it really wasn't what we wanted to hear. Okay, I don't understand what you're trying to say. What was it? What happened? What was it? And, well, it's what we feared. Okay, just tell me, what is it? And he said, it was malignant. I said, okay. And I said, so now what will you do? And that was it. It was okay. It wasn't no tears, no bawling, no. It was just like, okay, now that I know, where do I go from here? And that was my challenge to the doctors. Okay, where do I go from here? And the blessing about my tumor, as big as it was encased in a skin or whatever, sac. And the ball of cancer, you can see it. It was red and it was malignant. You can see that tumor. And that sac was benign. So it was a blessing. And I just felt that it would have been more, but I said no. And so from the moment that I said no, I've been okay with it. Everyone's like, aren't you afraid? I catch my breath every time I go in and get blood drawn and have a scan. I kind of like, and then I blow it all out because I've already decided for myself. It won't be another time. It won't be a reoccurrence. I'm done. Done with cancer. Done with cancer. So yeah, just basically with the kids and with life, it's just conquer that fear by facing it head on, straight on. And it's in your face. You see it. It's not as scary any longer. It's the facts. So the unknown is so much scarier than the known. You know, you wonder, oh my goodness, what is that? It's in the dark. And you're like, oh my goodness, what is that? You flip on the light. It's a sock. That's all it is. And so you're like, I feel really silly. No, it was. I didn't want to have that fear. I wanted to take that fear away from cancer and get back my power.
I was first affected in my early 20s. My stepmother died of breast cancer. And then about 5 years later, my aunt died of breast cancer. She was 40 years old. It affected me health-wise when I was 40. I had my first mammogram, which, you know, they say have it at 40, and my annual doctor's exam was coming up, and I knew she told me to have my mammogram, so I scrambled to get it in. And on that first mammogram, they found suspicious stuff, so that's when I was first diagnosed. I was 40 years old.
When Monica first told me about the results, didn't know what to feel. You know, wasn't in the room when the doctor talked to her. You know, I didn't get the explanation. You know, I just know breast cancer from, you know, just mass media at that point. No history of breast cancer that I was aware of. So it was just kind of a little bit of a fear of the unknown. But you know, as we got the kind of the plan, and there was a couple of iterations of that plan. But when we got to that final plan, and going to the doctor with Monica and talking through the plans with the physicians, I got more comfortable because there was something to do, so we didn't sit around thinking like, oh my God, we just wait. And then after that, it was just, okay, that's the plan. We got a large family that still needs to function. You know, I got a wife who still needs to be taken care of. I got a job I still need to do, and so I kind of went into this robotic, just get through the next 12 to 18 months mode. I don't know, that was maybe as a coping mechanism. It worked for me. It got me through the next 12 months. Got Monica through the next 12 months. So, somewhat of an outsider in the whole process, because there's really not anything tangible that I could have done to either speed up the recovery or to fix the situation. It was just, hey, you got the sheet, you know what she's going through, just get everybody through it. Somewhat of a helpless feeling, but at the same time I had these small things that I could do to keep the plan on track that kind of helped me get through that year and a half.
Okay. Our youngest were I think 3 years old, and then we had a 6th grader and an 8th grader. So they just absorbed the information and just observed. They were just taking their cues from us. So we stayed upbeat and positive, tried to inform them of everything that was going on along the way. They didn't talk about it. They didn't ask a lot of questions. I think they were a little scared when they visited me in the hospital, because I'm sure that was a frightening sight for them. I was just different, just being in the bed with all these tubes. But they were just kind of soaking it all in. And then throughout chemo, again, I think they would just make observations. And after chemo, I would be down for about a week or so. and they just kind of maintained. So they didn't keep their distance, and they weren't scared of me, but they didn't ask a lot of questions and do a lot of talking.
It kind of became our norm for a while. So maybe the first couple of times it was kind of like, wow, where is she? I was like, hey, no, she's resting. But then after that, it was a rhythm, and it was just kind of like, oh yeah, she just got back from chemo, so Dad, what's for dinner? Or
they knew I'd be sick for a few days.
So I don't know. We kind of, I don't want to say we embraced it, but we didn't go into this woe is me mode. It was all right. This is our life for a little bit, right? We'll make the best of it. You get healthy, back on your feet, and so if you were to ask our kids to like tell their story, I'm not even sure this would come up until you reminded them. Then they'd probably say, "Oh yeah,
remember that time Mom was in the hospital?
She did, she did, lose her hair, but I don't think it impacted them in a negative way." And again, we tried to, not put a happy face on it, but we did not want to scare them or scare ourselves for that matter. So. Now you might talk to them and they'll be in therapy in their 20s, but
because we didn't do it right.
Until then, I think we handled it the best way we knew how, without, like I said, derailing their lives. And they're young, they should still have fun, and we tried our best to keep that intact. So like I said, I don't know. Time will tell if we did a good job or not.
I did. Okay. I had great doctors around me, and sometimes they didn't know all the answers, but they knew the plan, and they knew what to try, and they were really good at educating me on what was happening. And it was still overwhelming, so Maurice would be with me, and he would have to tell me again and again. So I didn't know that I needed a support system, but I wouldn't have been able to get through that without the support system that I had. So that is the key, because every breast cancer case is different. Every chemotherapy treatment is a little different with different effects. So, and then the recovery and the side effects of that stuff is different for everybody. So you have to have a support system. And I had it right from the bat. I didn't have to go look for it. I didn't have to go search it. It was much easier for me because I had Maurice taking care of me and taking care of the kids, and I had him who was answering questions about what the doctor said 2 weeks ago that I forgot, and family and friends. So that is definitely. And if I had to tell anyone who was facing a diagnosis of breast cancer, lean on your support system.
Yeah, don't be a lone wolf.
Yeah.
My name is Tamber Smoot, and my survivor story. Try to skim through it. Well, February of last year, I went to the doctor for my regular, annual checkup with the female doctor. And we found a lump. Well, actually, I knew about the lump before, but I didn't think that it was breast cancer because my mother had masses, which is like just fatty tissue. My sister had cysts, so never anything that tested to be cancer. So because my grandmother was diagnosed the year before, which at that time I think she was 76, that was the first time breast cancer was even heard of in my family. She was like, let's just send you there just to be on the safe side. Well, I kind of dragged on going to get the test, which is a mammogram and a biopsy. But I eventually went, and it went from, they're doing the testing, and then the nurse was like, hey, the doctor will be in here to go over the results of the test, to bringing me into the room, telling me to change, and asking did I have any family with me. And I was just like, I came here by myself. And she was like, well, we're going to pull you into the doctor's office. So the nurses came in as support, and they showed me the picture of the tumor, and he was just saying that it looks so suspicious that he'll be surprised if it didn't come back as breast cancer. They told me the results will be there in a day or two. I actually got the news the next day, the afternoon. My navigation nurse, which is the nurse who pretty much set me up with everything, she called me. She went over the test results. And actually, before I even got the call from my navigation nurse, I got a call from the genetic counseling. So they knew my results before I even got it from the nurse. So that's what made me think that it was something more in the beginning. But from that point, everything went like fast-paced. From that point, I had to meet with the oncologist who was going to go over my chemo treatments. I had to meet with the surgeon who was going to talk about the type of surgery they were going to do to remove it. I had to meet with get set up with a plastic surgeon for the reconstruction, and then we had to coordinate everything on the same schedule as well. The way that they determined my treatment was pretty much the doctors went on a panel with other doctors at the hospital, and they decided, off of the size of the tumor, which I believe it was a 2B, so there's different stages. So I was stage 2A is what my stage was because of the size of the tumor itself. The tumor was on the left side. After I got an MRI just to make sure that the cancer didn't spread anywhere else in the body, they found another lump on the right side that was so far back that the other test didn't pick it up. So I had to get what's called an MRI guided biopsy, which is pretty much you go into this MRI machine, you have to stay perfectly still, and then they keep sticking you with this needle trying to get biopsy samples. Every time they missed or didn't get enough, they had to pull me out, reposition me, and put me back in. So that took a good hour and a half for me to do that part. But they tested it, and it turns out that it wasn't cancer, but it was atypical cells, which means that it could have turned into breast cancer at any moment. So because of that, I decided to get what's called a bilateral mastectomy, which pretty much means just remove both breasts. And that was just to help with the chances of reoccurrence, because I didn't want anything to reoccur. I had to go through 6 months of chemotherapy. 4 months were my aggressive rounds of chemo, which they gave me steroids to help with my the not losing weight, maintaining my appetite and things of that nature. So on my aggressive rounds, the kids stay with their father that weekend. So that worked out a whole lot better, because those were the 3 days that I typically would drag around until the chemo flushed my system. And about time, he dropped them off back at home, I was pretty much good to go to play mommy again. The treatments towards the end, they weren't as bad. It was just that the Benadryl that they gave me just made me terribly sleepy. So as soon as it hit, I was knocked out. My mother and my grandmother were two of my biggest supporters. They came to just about every round of chemo, doctor's appointments, the whole nine. And not to mention that, like I said, my grandmother was diagnosed the year before, so she was still at the end of her treatment while I was still going through mine. So we were pretty much trying to support each other through this whole process. I had to go through several surgeries, one to get a port installed, which was how I got my chemo administered in the first place. So they put this thing where it kind of pumps near your heart, and you have to leave it in there. They say at least 2 years, but I was able to get mine removed a little bit sooner. And I had my surgery where it was all done at once. So they removed the tumor. So they did chemo first and then removed the tumor. So they removed the tumor and they did the reconstruction all in one sitting. So that surgery typically takes 6 to 8 hours, but apparently my body is so complicated that it took 11 hours, and I didn't believe it when I, came to. They said my plastic surgeon, wouldn't leave my side until she knew everything was fine. I had to stay in the hospital for 3 days after that just to make sure that all the blood flow and everything was good. And that was September of last year. And then in December, I kind of had my, call it like the nit tuck surgery. Now, at this point, I just do my checkups. I'm cancer-free. So when they took the tumor out, they checked all my margins. They took out some lymph nodes, tested everything just to make sure it didn't spread beyond. And at that point, it still hadn't spread. And, even when I go to my follow-up appointments now, everything is good. So, it has been quite a journey. I know I'm missing a lot of things in between, but that's just a quick overview as to what it was. My job, they were so supportive. Me having to take off time, even when I was out for surgery, a lot of my coworkers raised money for me. My family was a big support outside of my grandmother, my sister's mother's church, well, my fake sister / real sister. Her mother church came and they, cooked meals for me when I came out of the hospital, so I didn't have to worry about food for like the first 2.5 weeks that I left. And I was fortunate to still work through the process, so I didn't have to take too much time off for work still. So, I'm blessed. I couldn't ask. It went so fast. there are times where I actually forget that I even had breast cancer just because nothing stopped. So it was like life had to keep going, and so did I. I am, can I say dramatic? Yes. If I didn't see her go through it at the time when she got diagnosed, I was selling life insurance still, but I made my own schedule. I was independent. So I went to all of her chemotherapy appointments, most of her doctor's appointments. I seen her push through it. She still worked. She still did everything. And it was just like, I can't make excuses. If my grandmother can get through this at age 76 and push through, there's no reason that I couldn't. Because ours both were caused by estrogen. So, yeah. Because I was 30 when I was diagnosed, she actually has to start getting mammograms at age 20. So, I mean, we briefly touched on it now. Of course, they don't understand the full scope of everything that was going on. They barely realized that I was sick. The thing that triggered them that there was a huge difference is when I lost my hair. I forgot that part. But, yes, I lost all my hair. And it kind of took them back like, hey, what's going on? But they got used to it and they got over it. I kind of promote, we're not terrible eaters. We do a nice balance of like our burgers / fruits and vegetables. But I do want her to remain, fairly healthy and active, just to kind of prayerfully, be preventative measures to her possibly getting it. I try not to think about the chance of recurrence. I'll be lying if I said it doesn't pop in my mind from time to time, but I know that stress is not a good factor for any, thing health-wise. So I try not to dwell on it. I try not to think about it. And like I said, sometimes I'm still going, that I don't even have the time to think about it. I know that with the surgery that I had, my chances of reoccurrence have gone down greatly. So I feel like I chose a lot of measures to kind of do away with that thought. She's probably stronger than me. She is very driven and focused. She's fearless. She asks questions. She's very intuitive. I honestly think with her, I don't think that it will be much of a milestone. I feel like she'll be aware when she gets older that I did have it. Know the measure or the precautions, safety precautions that she need to take, but I don't think that it will affect her at that time. Nor do I think that I'll be worried about it either, because I wouldn't want to kind of like think it into existence or kind of speak it into existence. So it will be something that prayerfully they don't have, and I tell them that often. Even when I told them about this interview, it's just like, do you think we're going to have it? That she asked it, I think they will have it. And I said, prayerfully, you don't. And we'll just won't, think of it. But, if God forbid that it does happen, at least we know that, there will be a strong support system, and then that will push through. Go to your doctor. Make sure that you're doing, your self-check exams, and just take care of your health, period. The best that you can. I know some things are out of our control, but if I didn't go to the doctor for my annual checkup, if I didn't do the exam and found the lump in the first place, and don't wait, because like I said, I found the lump, but I never went because of the cancer. So if you do find something that's suspicious, don't wait. Go right then and there. We found a lump. Well, actually, I knew about the lump before, but I didn't think that it was breast cancer.
That's when I was first diagnosed. I was 40 years old.
Basically found out right before my birthday. I was 29, turning 30.
Lean on your support system.
My name is Tamara Smoo, and I'm a breast cancer survivor.
I'm Michelle, and I survived breast cancer.